Hey everybody, Evan Laux here for Motorcycle and Powersports News. We are at the Crawford Museum in Cleveland, Ohio, and behind me is this 1974 Jackson Rotrax Mark II, and it's our Ride of the Week. So guys, I've got John Lutz right here. He's going to tell us about this bike, and just from the get-go, it's got a really interesting look to it. It's a speedway racer, and it has a lot of, unique elements to it.
Well, thanks, Evan. It's, it really is almost a glorified bicycle. Mm-hmm. The frame is Reynolds 531 steel tubing, which you'll find in British racing bicycles. The Rotrax had been around for many years prior to this sort of reinvention of it. They were really around in the 1930s and didn't really look a whole lot different from this. They used the JAP 500cc engines, which are really bulletproof, great motors. You might be familiar with those in the Morgan three-wheel cars. Okay. They had 1000cc twins in the front. But the interesting thing about these is that you can see, well, on this particular one, there's no brakes whatsoever. The bike was designed to go counterclockwise in the speedway racing. And because of that, it has this interesting reinforced foot peg on the right side where as you were going into that left-hand turn, you would put all your weight on this foot peg to kind of counterbalance and then crank the steering wheel so you were counter steering going into that turn. Right. You would also wear a metal plate on your boot, and you would put that down on the other side of the bike, so you'd be honking down on this foot peg on the one side and dragging your metal plated boot on the other side, and that's how you would go full bore down the racetrack, going sideways.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
But yeah, obviously, I'd be curious to know how much this bike weighs, because like you said, it's almost more like a bicycle.
It's extremely light. It really is almost like a glorified bicycle. I can't give you the exact weight in pounds, but you can almost pick it up. Right,
and it's got the skinny front tire, so I'm sure it maneuvers pretty well.
It does indeed. One of the interesting things about it, you can see it has a minuscule gas tank, so we're not really talking about any kind of long distance racing. But the frame itself was actually used as the oil tank. You'll see just above the filler cap on the gas tank is another filler cap that fits right into the frame, and that's where you place the oil. Okay. So it's kind of an interesting utilization of you just hope that the frame didn't crack right above the engine when it was underway.
And that's something pretty unique to this model, right?
Yeah, it is.
Other bikes weren't doing that around that time.
And there's probably a reason for that. Is if it's a competition bike, and if you cracked the frame that was full of oil, it would not be a happy outcome. But that's what they did for racing, and worked out very well. This bike was responsible for 7 world championships in speedway racing, so that's nothing to sneeze at. Unfortunately, speedway racing never really became popular in the United States. The closest thing that we have to it is the flat trackers. Right. But this is a whole other, scary bit of nonsense that never quite caught on in this country.
Right. And you said 7 world championships. Obviously, this was a pretty storied bike, a successful bike. Did the Mark II have an extended lifespan, or did they move on to a new model pretty quickly?
Evan, that's a great question, and I wish I knew the answer. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I know that, this basic configuration had kind of soldiered on for probably 30 years. And then, I know that speedway racing is still something that goes on in Great Britain, but almost never happens in the United States. So I don't think that the type of motorcycle here in the States had evolved any further than really what you see here.
Right. Do you have any guess to why speedway racing didn't catch on in the US?
I'm not sure. Because it really is fairly close in its nature to flat trackers. Maybe it was the smaller displacement. Maybe it was because they're kind of like glorified bicycles, It just, for some reason, just never, and it might have had to do with promotion, things like that on the financial side, but it just never really went crazy here in the States. I know they tried for a while, but it just never took off. So.
And you mentioned right at the beginning of the video this JAP motor. You said it's bulletproof. Is there any reason to that? Why are these engines so reliable?
They're very simple. It's just a regular push rod single overhead cam engine, and have stood the test of time. And they've been applied in, like, no joke, about 50 different kinds of vehicles.
Wow. Okay.
So it is kind of a universal standard, not here in the States, but certainly in Great Britain. They were used in lots and lots of different applications. So by the time 1974 came around, this engine had really been developed to sort of its fullest potential.
Right.
So it was a really good motor for this kind of application. Very light motor too.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks for telling us about this bike. It's really cool. It's something I haven't heard of before, so it was really cool to learn about it.
Yeah, we're really delighted to have it here. It's not ours, but it's loaned to us by a racer who actually, rode this kind of stuff and flat trackers and all that stuff. So he has a wonderful collection of racing bikes, and this was one of the pieces from his collection that he very kindly loaned us, so we're happy to show it.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks again for telling us about this 1974 Jackson Rotrax Mark II. It's a super cool bike, and it was really cool to learn about it.
Thanks. I'm delighted that you came to see it.
Awesome. Well, guys, we just looked at another flat track racer, and it's really cool. So we'll link that at the bottom if you want to check that out. Make sure you're checking out the Crawford Museum if you're ever in Northeast Ohio. They've got a ton of cool bikes to check out, and make sure you're following Motorcycle and Power Sports News for some more great content. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.